I'm sure at one point or another you've heard the word squatting before. It's basically you live in a house that's not yours and you eventually take ownership of it. But recently it's becoming extremely mainstream. I saw it on the Joe Rogan podcast. They're talking about it. It's all over the news. And now I'm seeing all these crazy articles. Just in the past few days, multiple extremely gruesome squatting stories are popping up everywhere. So let's take a look at some of the stuff going on. So this is a recent Joe Rogan podcast with Dave Attell where they're talking about migrant squatting and people making YouTube channels, giving tutorials on how to squat without getting caught. And they just go over some of the recent scenarios in the news. I'll play a quick clip from this.
It's not like where we're from. You can just get in the house and then you can stay there.
In Queens.
Yeah.
The lady got arrested for changing the locks on her own home.
And that to me is crazy.
They're also saying in New York, if you're in a house for 30 days, you legally become a tenant.
Yep.
That's right.
If you get mail sent to the place.
And just to fact check real quick, he's not wrong. In New York, squatters, if they've been there for 30 days, the landlords now have to evict them. And it's a process that could take about 2 years. So somebody could be on vacation for a month and you stay there. You basically get to stay there for 1 to 2 years, depending on how long the eviction process takes, which is insane.
In your name, it's yours.
That is bananas.
That is crazy.
Dude, I love this story. I think it happened in like Seattle or Portland or something. This guy was at every march and rally, and he was like big Antifa and communism. And he met someone there, and the guy was like, "Hey, can I crash with you?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure." So he brought him and his girlfriend and stayed on the couch. And after 2 weeks, the guy wouldn't let the homeowner into his own house, and he had to call the police, which is like against their religion.
This happens. Depending on the state's rules, you can completely get away with something like this. Here's an example of squatting explained in simple terms, because this guy's going to do a better job explaining than I can. And this, I think in particular, is Atlanta. So every state, different rules, but you're going to get the idea here of the power that squatters hold because of the law.
So a squatter, we're talking about squatters, so just to define that, it's a person who's illegally residing on your property that they don't own, right?
They have no right to be there. They weren't there as a renter before. They just saw that it was empty, forced their way in, probably changed the locks, and now they don't want you in.
Let's start from the beginning. First of all, why is the house empty in the first place? I guess there are lots of reasons. And how in the world did this squatter gain possession?
Well, it works like this. You decide you want to have your house painted. Okay, you hire a contractor. Contractor goes deer hunting over the weekend.
Right.
So the house is empty. The guy sees a for rent sign, and he just calmly goes and breaks in the back door or finds the door unlocked. He changes the locks, and now it's his. He's a squatter.
So why can't you, as the landlord or the homeowner, just go back and change the locks and take your house back?
Well, that's called a self-help eviction. It's illegal in Georgia. And if you are convicted of it, there are fines, there's possible jail time. And in addition to that, the squatter can then sue you for any damages that you may have caused. All a squatter has to do is simply find a sign that says for rent. It's reasonable to expect that house will be empty. They help themselves in, and it's likely to take 60 to 90 days to get them out. They get a free ride.
Wow.
And if the utilities are on, you can't even turn off the utilities.
So you're paying for that too, right?
Yep.
All right. So a squatter, we're talking about squatters. So just to define.
So in Atlanta, you could just return home from vacation and then your locks are changed and there's somebody living in your house and you try and kick them out. And guess what? You're the one who can go to jail. That's insane to me. And according to this guy, it takes about 2 to 3 months to kick somebody out. Which 2 to 3 months of free rent, living in a house, living like a king, eating all the food in the cupboard. This sounds like a movie. This sounds fake. But 2 to 3 months is nothing compared to what some people do. This one guy in New York, he squatted for 23 years. He lived in a house for 23 years for free. And to be fair, this was a little bit different. He bought a home, I guess, kind of. He paid 1 month of a mortgage payment. So in 1998, he made one payment of $1,600 before he defaulted. The bank did a foreclosure, but then he just didn't leave. He just kept filing for bankruptcy and he stalled for 23 years. He was living in a home with over 2,000 square feet for 23 years for free. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's a pretty nice house. Says he saved about $440,000 by not paying his mortgage for 23 years. But this particular scenario was kind of a long time ago. I think this guy got caught a couple years ago. Recently, there's been a lot of crazy stuff. I'm just talking the past few days, there's been a bunch of crazy stuff. For example, this LA woman, wait till you hear this. This is truly shocking. The great lengths she went to maintain the real estate in which she stole. These are her guns. Don't be fooled by her picture. She's pretty wild. It says, for months, con artist Caroline Herling drove through affluent neighborhoods scouting for her next mark. Did a pool have the green tint of algae? Was the lawn overgrown, landscape long abandoned? Most importantly, were there slight signs of life inside the house? The mail being picked up, or the flicker of a TV sparking behind a curtain? In the fall of 2020, federal prosecutors now say Herling, just one of her several names the West Hill woman was using, found exactly what she was looking for: a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom home at 3860 Kingswood Road in Sherman Oaks. An elderly man named Charles Wilding had grown up in the house as a single child, never married, and stayed in his childhood home when first his father died and then soon after his mother. And he would die there too, only under much more suspicious circumstances, sometime in September 2020. His body decomposed in the home, now overrun by Herling and several other squatters she hired to help her drain Wilding's estate dry. When neighbors started nosing around in December and reported Wilding missing, Herling and a bunch of thugs who helped her in her scheme dismembered the body, placing the pieces in vacuum-sealed bags, and then threw them off of a sailboat into the San Francisco Bay, prosecutors say. So this woman right here, who looks somewhat innocent in this photo, her whole thing is she waits for an old person to die, dismembers their body, vacuum seals it, throws it into the bay. It's as if that person never existed, and she lives in their home, and I'm sure there's some way she makes money off of this as well. Maybe sells the house, I have no idea. Wilding was not the Herling crew's only victim. She had been in professional squatters for years by then, one with multiple identities, a cache of weapons, and a collection of fake police badges, and hired help that included an expert forger as well as boyfriends who posed as her victims, as wills were faked, identities were stolen, and homes sold out from under their owners. So she had boyfriends who presumably she would get rid of the homeowner one way or another, whether they died from natural causes and she hid the body, or she killed them. And then her boyfriends would pose as the victims. This is next level stuff. This is extremely organized crime. This is shocking to hear. The Herling crew, this is like a modern day Wild West crew ran by a woman. The extent with the law enforcement badges, this is insane. And she did a lot of time for this too. So she managed to steal about $4 million, prosecutors say, in her squatting scheme. Another eerie example, which is oddly similar to the LA woman, is 2 squatters who took over a New York City home of a woman who they killed, and they took her apartment. The victim in this case was Nadia Vittel, and when she came home to her New York City apartment, she found that there was 2 teenage girls living there, and they killed her. They killed Nadia Vittel. After they killed her, they panicked, they fled the apartment, and they stole her SUV. They drove to New Jersey and then to Pennsylvania, where they eventually crashed the SUV and tried selling the damaged car, for $1,000. This is the apartment owner right here who was murdered. I believe they're both women. I don't know if Kensley and Hallie are women names, to be honest. They're both a little on the spectrum for me. They could go either way. Okay, so one was a man, one was a woman. But regardless, this is absolutely insane that people's new strategy is just to kill the homeowners and live there. The whole squatting situation is getting completely out of hand. I would say just don't go on vacation for a while. It really feels like the Wild West out here. The fact that you have to guard your home as if we're living in anarchy and that somebody could just steal your house at any moment. And the fact that people are just murdering people in order to steal their homes because they don't want to pay rent or a mortgage. Man. You almost feel like something in the air is happening, something really bad. Between the Baltimore Bridge collapsing, this whole P. Diddy stuff, and then you got the squatters. I feel like there's a lot of dark stuff going on right now, and I don't know, man. Hopefully everything gets better, but this is a wacky world we're living in right now. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.